Dr. New, let's welcome you to the stage, please, sir.
Thank you all for having me. As you know, I was a last-minute replacement, but I do a lot of writing, a lot of speaking on sanctity of life issues, and I'm very happy to be here today. So if we could cue up the PowerPoint, and I can get started, would appreciate that. Just before I start, I'm Michael New. I'm a professor. I teach economics to our business students at the Catholic University of America. I do a lot of writing and research on the social science of sanctity of life issues. So I write about fun topics like abortion trends, impact of pro-life laws, public opinion, contraception programs. I am lots of fun at cocktail parties. So all kinds of things I talk about. On top of that, and I think even more importantly, I also help run a pro-life sidewalk housing ministry outside the Washington, D.C. Planned Parenthood. I am there every Saturday morning when I'm in town with a group of people trying to build a culture of life. The guy who actually is kind of my partner in crime, who is always there with me, has gotten ordered a priest who is from the great state of Mississippi. So we had a Mississippi resident who I met actually when I was teaching at the University of Alabama. He took part in my DC internship program. He then went on to work on Capitol Hill. He is now actually a full-time fundraiser for Students for Life of America, and heard I needed some help with the sidewalk housing ministry, and he's one of the best people I have out there. So Mississippi continues to produce some great pro-life leaders. So my PowerPoint is up and ready, and we are all set to go. Now I have 169 slides to get through. If you want to win money, bet on whether or not I'll get through the slides. If you bet yes, you will win. People are skeptical, but I will get through them. So I'm here to talk about next steps in pro-life activism. We're trying to get the slide advanced, which will happen, we hope. So, just to warn you, as I said before, I'm a social scientist. I deal with a lot of data, a lot of numbers, a lot of facts, a lot of information, okay? So get ready, brace yourself. You know, it's all good information, but pay attention, it comes at you fast. So here we go. So before I start, I'm gonna try to get the things rolling here. Let's go to the right position here. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're up and running. Okay, before I begin, a couple quick commercials before I really get into the meat of my talk. Commercial number one. One of the best things I do every summer is I teach at something called the Vitae Institute at Notre Dame. The Vitae Institute is a week's worth of pro-life instruction. There are lectures on theology, lectures on philosophy, law, bioethics, biology. I usually give one lecture on the social science. It's at Notre Dame. If you get in, you'll get to meet a great group of pro-life activists from across the country and around the world. I've taught folks from Canada, Mexico, Africa, Poland, Croatia. It's a great week, and best of all, if you get in, it's free of charge. All you have to do is get yourself to South Bend, and they feed you, they put you up. The deadline for this summer has already passed, but if it's really in your heart to head to South Bend in June and take part in this, let me know. I can see about trying to get you on the waiting list. If this year is not going to work for you, it goes on every year. So apply next year. I guarantee you, well worth your while, a great week. You'll make some great contacts, and you'll learn quite a lot about sanctity of life issues. That's the first commercial. We're going the wrong way again. What? I'm not sure. Okay, that's the problem. There, second commercial. As mentioned today, I'm part of a think tank, the Charlotte Lozier Institute. We are the research and education arm of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. I used to say that we were a new think tank. We're not that new anymore. We were kind of founded in 2011, so I guess we're approaching 13 years of age. But for a long time, pro-lifers needed our own research institute. The only group that was researching abortion was the Guttmacher Institute. Guttmacher, up until 2006 or 2007, was Planned Parenthood's research arm. They have a very apparent pro-abortion, pro-contraception bias. So we needed a pro-life think tank. I was very honored. They made me the first associate scholar back in 2011, and we have, a team of scholars working on a whole range, from a whole range of disciplines, including public health, including law, including bioethics. I'm a social scientist. We have good content about sanctity of life issues coming out almost every day. So please, look at us up on Twitter, Facebook, follow us on social media. We're a great, great resource for everybody. Now, before I want to kind of deviate from my script a little bit here. We had kind of an exciting week in Washington, D.C. last week. This past week, 7 rescuers who were involved in some pro-life civil disobedience were sentenced. I know pro-lifers don't necessarily agree about the wisdom of civil disobedience. This is where the time or place for this discussion, but it is a real miscarriage of justice. We had sentences ranged from 21 months to 57 months for what should amount to trespassing. And these sentences will be appealed. We hope they'll be reduced. One of the rescuers is a person named Herb Garrity. Today's Herb's birthday. So if you could just pray for these rescuers. Again, people can disagree about whether civil disobedience is a good or a bad strategy, but I think we can all agree that years and years in jail for mentioning trespassing, is not a fair, not a just sentence. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and ask you to pray for them. Now, on to the meat of my talk. Okay, I do a lot of writing on sanctity of life issues, and when you do a lot of writing, you get asked to give a lot of talks. So I have different talks for different audiences. So sometimes I'm asked to talk to a pro-life group, and I have a fun talk. I'm here to basically entertain people, and that's good. Sometimes I'm invited to speak at a statewide summit, and we gather from across the state, and we need to strategize and think. So if I'm at a statewide summit, I have a serious talk. Well, here today, I find myself at a pro-life statewide summit. So I'm going to try to give you a talk that's both fun and serious. So I hope I can pull this off in the next hour or so. So, hey, I got some exciting news for you. We did it! Roe v. Wade was overturned. Years and years of blood, sweat, tears, and prayer all paid off. And maybe instead of saying we did it, I should say honestly, you did it. It was a pro-life law in Mississippi that led to Roe's reversal. So the entire country owes you a great deal of gratitude for your conviction and for your persistence and your great work on sanctity of life issues. So again, I've been doing this work for since the early to mid 1990s. Those of you who are younger than me really just don't appreciate what a slog it was getting Roe v. Wade overturned once and for all. So it's a great, great accomplishment, one for which we should rightfully be proud. Now here's what I'm going to talk about in this presentation. First, the good news. What a lot of people don't realize is we're making actually a lot of progress even with Roe v. Wade on the books. The U.S. abortion rate fell by more than 50% since 1980. So I want to talk about that even when abortion was legal, we enjoyed a lot of success getting abortion numbers down. And here's the better news. Now that Roe v. Wade's overturned, we're going to make even more progress, and that's really exciting. So first, the good news. I want to talk about what I call the pre-Dobbs pro-life success story. So again, the U.S. abortion rate has fallen by more than 50% since 1980. And all this happened when abortion was legal in all 50 states for all 9 months of pregnancy, and where every state had at least one abortion facility. And this is a success story I think we should do a better job promoting. So what I want to talk about for the first part of our presentation is explaining this decline in the abortion rate. So when I give talks, I have 2 statistics I want everyone to remember. This is the first. The U.S. abortion rate fell by more than 50% since 1980. The second one I'll get to later, but just for now remember, we cut the abortion rate in half since 1980. And this is with Roe v. Wade on the books. So I think this is important for several reasons. First off, usually when there's a public policy success story, it gets attention. Fall of communism, declining crime rates in New York City, a vaccine. But even though you're a pro-life activist, I would wager that very few of you probably were aware that we cut the abortion rate by more than half since 1980. So usually when something good happens, it gets attention. But this falling abortion rate was really only talked about by me and a handful of other people who follow this issue very, very closely. Secondly, it's surprising because the public policy didn't really change that much before Dobbs. So I want to give you a quick thought experiment. Suppose I jump into a time machine. I go back to 1980. And I talked to a bunch of pro-life leaders back in 1980. And I'm at the table with Jack Wilkie, who used to run National Right to Life, and Mildred Fay Jefferson. She was the first African-American graduate of Harvard Medical School and also one-time president of National Right to Life. I'm talking to Joe Shiner, and I'm talking to Nellie Gray, who started the March for Life. And I say, listen, it took us some 42 more, it's going to take 42 years for us to overturn Roe v. Wade. But even before we overturn Roe v. Wade, we're going to succeed in cutting the abortion rate by more than half. I think the pro-life leaders tonight may be very skeptical about this guy for the future who predicted this big abortion decline. But that was correct. So again, I think they'd be very surprised that we did succeed in cutting abortion numbers by more than half. So again, that's very important. If the abortion rate today was what it was back in 1980, when it peaked, there'd be 1 million more abortions taking place every year in the U.S. So by getting involved politically, and by supporting pregnancy help centers, and by educating our friends and our peers, every year we save 1 million children, and we spare 1 million women from a lifetime of regret. So we've actually done very well getting abortion numbers down. So this is the chart. This is Guttmacher. Again, this is a group that supports legal abortion up until 2006, 2007, was Planned Parenthood's research arm. You see after Roe v. Wade, numbers go up, and then they peak in 1980, and with a few hiccups here and there, numbers fall consistently since 1980. So again, we see abortion numbers falling. Same data, different time frame. Mother Jones, again, a liberal magazine, they do acknowledge that U.S. abortions are falling, and falling by quite a lot. Now, the narrative behind this decline is important. Our opponents do agree numbers are falling. But our opponents, being our opponents, they will bend over backwards to avoid giving us any credit. So one thing I've kind of noticed, having worked on this issue since the 90s, is that as we've made some longer-term gains in the court of public opinion, our opponents like to argue with us that we're wrong. What often they'll do is they'll say that we're just ineffective. They'll basically say, it's wonderful you pro-life people care so much about preborn children, but you know what? If you really care about preborn children, banning abortion won't work. What you should do is you should spend money on contraception, or spend money on welfare, or spend money on universal health care. And to some people who are kind of frustrated with kind of the lack of pro-life progress before Dobbs, those arguments, did appeal to some people. But, we know what works. There's research out there. And the things pro-lifers have been doing for the past 50 years do have a clear track record of success. That policies to encourage sexual restraint work. Pro-life laws have a track record of success. Changing hearts and minds is effective. Helping pregnant women in need is effective. All things pro-lifers have done to build a culture of life, laws, education, service, these things all work. The things our opponents try to confuse us with have no track record of success. There's really not one study in a peer-reviewed journal which shows that spending more money on welfare gets abortion numbers down. I mean, we should care about poor people. We certainly want a welfare system that's compassionate and can help people in need, but it's not a substitute for a pro-life law. Again, there's not one study showing spending more money on welfare gets abortion numbers down. There's also not one study showing universal health care gets abortion numbers down. Again, health is an important issue. We want everyone to have access, high-quality health care. But again, there's no research showing that universal health care or just spending more on health care from the government gets abortion down. And contraceptive programs, do not have a track record of success. Most programs for contraceptive use are either ineffective at best or counterproductive at worst. I mean, people may have different ideas, philosophically or theologically about contraception. But as a practical matter, as a social scientist, by and large, promoting contraception is not a good strategy. Most programs to encourage contraception use, again, are either ineffective at best or counterproductive at worst. So why did the abortion rate fall? Well, let's talk about some incorrect explanations. You probably heard from our good friends in the mainstream media. So why didn't the abortion rate fall? One incorrect reason is because we elected and re-elected President Clinton and we elected and re-elected President Obama, two Democratic presidents who both aggressively supported legal abortion. And as you probably have heard, 2024 is an election year, and I can almost read the editorial before it's published. I guarantee you, sometime this election cycle, I'll go online, I'll pick up a paper, and I'll see an editorial that reads something like this. Pro-lifers want to stop abortion. The abortion rate fell under President Clinton. He supported legal abortion. The abortion rate fell under President Obama. He also supported legal abortion. Therefore, pro-lifers should support candidates who support legal abortion. Now, if anyone take a stats board, I can tell you, correlation is not the same thing as causation. Yes, we elected and re-elected President Clinton. Yes, we elected and re-elected President Obama. Yes, the abortion rate fell, but it wasn't because we did those things, okay? I mean, I stayed up all night trying to think of one thing either President Clinton or President Obama did to get abortion numbers down, and honestly, I really couldn't come up with anything. I mean, what happened was you just had a very long, durable decline that persisted through both Democratic and Republican presidential administrations, and it really had nothing to do with the election or re-election of President Clinton or President Obama. More use of contraceptives. Now, I'll give our opponents a little bit of credit on this. They are correct that contraceptive use has gone up. But in many cases, so has the unintended pregnancy rate. So this is data from the CDC about percentage of women who've ever used certain kinds of contraception. And since the early 80s, those numbers have in fact gone up, okay? This is a percentage, currently using different kinds of contraception. Again, since the early 80s, you do see an upward trend in these numbers. I don't dispute that. But, if our opponents are correct, you'd expect to see the unintended pregnancy rate go down, which you really haven't. This is the unintended pregnancy rate. This is from Guttmacher, again, a group that supports contraception use. Again, you see the numbers fall a bit, but starting in the mid-1990s, the unintended pregnancy rate starts to go up. So if contraceptives are so effective, why is the unintended pregnancy rate going up according to this data? You would think if they were so effective, you'd see numbers going down. This is updated data from Guttmacher. They threw out the 94 data for, I think, political reasons. Again, you don't see a long-term durable decline in the unintended pregnancy rate. You see fluctuations. You see the numbers going up between 2001 and 2008, a point in time when abortions are actually going down. So you see more contraception use, but you don't see a clear, durable decline in the unintended pregnancy rate. So you see kind of fluctuation here, but you see a durable decline in the abortion rate there. So it's really not contraception use. Third, this is my favorite, lavish money for Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood always says, give us more of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars. We'll put the money into sex ed programs and contraception programs, and they get abortion numbers down. Well, Planned Parenthood is America's largest provider of abortions. They do well over 300,000, almost $400,000, 400,000 abortions annually. It's a big moneymaker for them. They have absolutely no interest in getting abortion numbers down. More importantly, let's take a look at Texas. Texas back in 2011, they're one of the first states to cut funding for Planned Parenthood back in 2011. They faced a lot of criticism for doing this. All kinds of self-appointed public health experts said this would be a disaster. You'll have teen pregnancy rates will skyrocket. You'll have unintended pregnancy rates skyrocket. What Texas is doing is going to be really, really awful, and there'll be all kinds of negative health consequences. To their credit, probably the Texas state legislature ignored these people and held the line. And look what happened. Between 2011 and 2019, minor births in Texas declined 64%. Minor abortions in Texas declined 64%. Does that look like a public health disaster to you? It looks pretty good to me. I think a lot of states look at public health trends look just like that. So Texas, to their credit, eliminated Planned Parenthood from the state family planning program, and positive trends continued. Minor births, minor pregnancies, minor abortions all declined, and declined by a lot. So again, I don't think this Planned Parenthood funding getting these abortion numbers down. Lastly, welfare spending and/or universal health care. Some people claim that the Affordable Care Act, which President Obama signed in 2010 and took effect between 2011 and 2013, got abortion numbers down. But I always remind people, the abortion rate started falling in 1980, okay? That's well before the Affordable Care Act. So no, it wasn't the Affordable Care Act. And as I said before, there's again no research showing that spending more money on health care or welfare gets abortion numbers down. So we've gone over the incorrect explanations for the decline of the abortion rate. The election of Democratic presidents, more use of contraceptives, more funding for Planned Parenthood, and either spending money on welfare or universal health care. So why are abortion rates falling? Remember my two statistics? Again, the U.S. abortion rates fallen by more than 50% since 1980. And the second, a small percentage of unintended pregnancies result in an abortion. So, show the numbers here. So we actually could have data on what happens when women do face unintended pregnancies. And you see from this data, which is put together by Guttmacher and the World Health Organization, again, two entities that are not pro-life, you see half of all unintended pregnancies ended up in an abortion in the early 90s. By the late 2010s, only a third did. So essentially, if a woman was faced with unintended pregnancy in the early 90s, she chose an abortion by half the time. By the late 2010s, only about a third of the time. 2/3 of the time she chose life and carried that pregnancy to term. And I think that really does explain why the abortion rate is falling. So I show this statistic to every pro-life audience that will listen to me. Why do you think I show this to every pro-life audience that invites me? Why do you think this is so important? Think I heard correctly? Basically, I'll just say very quickly, it shows we're effective. If more women are choosing life, this is one of three reasons. We either changed hearts and minds and just persuaded them, we passed better and more effective pro-life laws that are protecting them and their child, or we're doing a better job helping them through pregnancy help centers, or some combination of these things. So it's the things we've been doing: education, legislation, service. So why is it important? It shows pro-life efforts are effective. We're either shifting public opinion, changing hearts and minds, caring for material needs of pregnant women, or enacting protective laws. So it all flows back to the things pro-lifers have been doing since Roe v. Wade was handed down back in 1973. So again, why are fewer unplanned pregnancies ending in abortion? Again, change the public opinion, pregnancy help centers, more state-level pro-life laws. So again, this is the Gallup poll. Okay, Gallup every year does a poll on abortion. They ask a very simple question: do you identify as pro-life or pro-choice? Again, you see that the dark blue line is pro-life, the green line is pro-choice. Back in 1995, what percentage of people identify as pro-life? Yeah, it's about 34%. Look at 2021. How many people identify as pro-life? 47. So we gained 13 points. I wish we could, make up even more ground, but certainly since the mid-1990s, we made up a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So, a higher percentage of people do identify as pro-life. So we really have made some gains in the court of public opinion. Again, why was this? Well, if you remember back in the 90s, we had the big debate over the partial birth abortion ban. We were trying to stop a type of late-term abortion that President Clinton actually vetoed this ban on at least one occasion. This couldn't be ignored. The media couldn't really ignore this issue. We had pictures of aborted children on TV and in newspapers and magazines, and I think it really did show, frankly, how permissive our abortion laws really were at the time, and also how radical some pro-abortion politicians really were. They did support abortion throughout all 9 months of pregnancy. So there was that, and just ultrasound technology gets better every year. Nowadays, the very first picture somebody sees of a son, daughter, brother, sister, niece, nephew is often in utero. You see these pictures on bulletin boards, on refrigerators. I think this has a very subtle, very important impact on this debate. Pregnancy help centers, life statistic. Between 1991 and 2017, number of abortion facilities has fallen. You said over 2,100. Now, even before Dobbs, down to just over 700. 2/3 have closed. I lived in Michigan for a while, and we were lucky enough to get some abortion clinics closed. Local pro-lifers did a great tradition. Every time an abortion clinic closed, we throw a party. Fewer abortions, fewer people working in the abortion industry. We always thought it was a great cause for celebration. So there was an abortion clinic in Dearborn that closed when I was there. Every time one closed, we throw a party. So I think that's a great reason for celebration. But while abortion clinics are closing, pregnancy help centers are opening up. Between 1988 and 2015, the number of organizations assisting pregnant women went from about 2,100 to over 4,000. So almost doubled. So abortion facilities are closing, pregnancy help centers are opening up, both very good trends. And again, we see even fewer facilities, doing abortions after Dobbs, and even more pregnancy help centers, opening up in its aftermath. And again, I work for the Lozier Institute. Our new pregnancy help center report is going to come out on Tuesday, but I'll give you a sneak peek. Back in 2022, pregnancy help centers provide services to over 970,000 women. Or at least these are new clients. So over nearly 1 million people sought assistance for a pregnancy help center. 44,000 volunteers assisted them in some way. They provided over $367 million worth of goods and services. Healthcare, ultrasounds, material goods. So pregnancy centers are really stepping up and doing a lot to help women in need. Lastly, legislation. Starting in the 90s, a lot more states started to enact pro-life laws. So again, even before Dobbs, we were doing a good job at least passing some good incremental laws to protect preborn children. So in 1992, only 20 states had enacted pro-life parental involvement laws. These laws require a minor girl to either notify her parents or get permission from her parents before obtaining an abortion. 37 states had these laws as of 2021. In 1992, only 18 states had what we called Casey-style informed consent laws. These are laws that give women seeking abortions information. The information can be about public and private sources of support for pregnant women. It can be about potential health risks involved in abortion. The information can be about field development. Only 18 states had these in 1992. 29 states had them in 2021. Only 21 states were regulating abortion clinics in 1992. 30 states are doing so as of 2021. And no states had banned partial birth abortion in 1992. It wasn't really an issue then. 21 states had done so by 2021. So a lot more states had enacted pro-life laws since the early 90s. Why was this? A couple reasons. First was the Casey decision in 1992. If you know the history of the pro-life movement, Dobbs was not the first time the Supreme Court really reconsidered the constitutionality of Roe v. Wade. They did so back in 1992 in a decision called Casey v. Planned Parenthood. And this was a case that stemmed from an appeal about the constitutionality of a pro-life law that was passed in Pennsylvania called the Abortion Control Act. And the Supreme Court heard this case in 1992. And in the 1980s and early 90s, pro-lifers invested heavily in both electing and re-electing President Reagan and electing President George H.W. Bush. Both these men were pro-life, and between them, they appointed 5 Supreme Court judges. So in 1992, we really thought we had the judges on the court who would be willing to overturn Roe v. Wade. And when they didn't do so back then, it was a real disappointment and a real setback. But there was a bit of a silver lining that day, which is even though they didn't reverse Roe v. Wade, they didn't uphold most of the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act. So they did uphold like a parental involvement law. They upheld a waiting period. They upheld informed consent law. So even though we didn't get Roe reversed, the Supreme Court did give some more constitutional protection to certain state incremental laws. And that did make it a little bit easier for us to pass these laws at the state level after Casey. Secondly, Republicans have gained control over more and more state legislatures. Now, this is obviously a nonpartisan gathering. There are pro-life people in both parties, and there are pro-life Democrats who do some good and important work. But in every state and at the federal level, Republicans are better on the abortion issue. When they take control of the state legislature, it makes it much, much easier to go ahead and pass these protective laws. So those of you who are a little bit younger than me probably don't remember, Democrats used to really dominate local politics in this country. In 1992, there were only 8 states where Republicans controlled both chambers of the state legislature. Democrats really seem to control state legislatures in a vast, vast majority of the country. That's changed. Today, Republicans control both chambers of the state legislature in 28 states. So Republicans have really done a lot better recruiting effective candidates at the local level. Again, both parties do have some pro-life people in them. Again, this isn't meant to be partisan, but in general, when Republicans do win control of the state legislature, it does make it much easier to pass these protective laws, and that's one of the reasons why we see more and more states passing pro-life laws even before Dobbs. So what impact have all these laws had? Public funding limits, parental involvement laws, informed consent laws. Again, I've done the research on this. Public funding limits. When I talk about public funding limits, I'm typically talking about laws that prevent state Medicaid programs for paying for abortion. That every state has a Medicaid program providing some health insurance for low-income earners. In some states, the state Medicaid program covers abortion. In some states, it does not. Some states have changed their policy over time, and we can look at what happens. And there's very good research on this. If your state quits covering abortion through Medicaid, abortion numbers go down. They fall anywhere from about 5 to 10%. Very, very strong research backs this up. That when abortions are free or heavily subsidized, more women on Medicaid get abortions. If women have to pay out of pocket, they're a lot less likely to do so. So very strong research shows defunding abortion gets abortion numbers down. At the Hyde Amendment, we prevent the federal government, or I should say we limit the ability of the federal government to, pay for, abortions through Medicaid with federal taxpayer dollars. There's really good research showing that the federal Hyde Amendment saves millions of lives. Again, the Hyde Amendment was first, introduced in 1976 by pro-life Congressman Henry Hyde. It has to be passed every year. It's kind of a rider to an appropriations bill that funds health and human services, that funds, the federal part of the Medicaid program. Center for Reproductive Rights, obviously supports legal abortion. Their analysis indicates that the Hyde Amendment saved, 1 million lives. This is back in 2010. I do research for the Lozier Institute. I found the Hyde Amendment has saved over 2.5 million lives since 1976. So please don't let anybody tell you that pro-life political involvement has been effective, because pro-lifers have got active politically and kind of gotten the federal government largely out of the business of funding abortion. There's 2.5 million people walking around today who owe their lives to the Hyde Amendment. So again, you see research on both sides showing the Hyde Amendment has saved millions of lives. Parental involvement laws, again, these are laws that require minor girls who are pregnant and seeking abortions either notify their parents or get permission from their parents. Every study that looks at parental involvement laws agrees you pass a parental involvement law, minor abortion numbers go down. That's true of studies that look at many states simultaneously. It's true of studies that look at individual states, including Massachusetts, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Texas. So there's a good body of research there. And lastly, informed consent laws. Again, these are laws that give women seeking abortions information. And that information can be about health risks. It can be about alternative sources of support for pregnant women, both public and private. It can be about field development. There's not as much research on these types of laws, but 3 studies actually looked at the law passed here in Mississippi and found that the law that took effect back in 1993 did save lives, did prevent abortions. I did 2 studies for State Policy and Policy Quarterly, which is the top state policy journal in the country, finding these laws to reduce the abortion rate anywhere from 2% to 11%. They're not magical, but you give women an alternative. Sometimes they do take the alternative. So a lot of the incremental things we did had some effect. Now, suppose you don't believe anything I've said during the past half hour. Suppose you just think I'm a snake oil salesman the Lozier Institute brought to you to try to convince you that pro-life laws work. Well, you don't need to read a bunch of academic studies. You don't need an academic background in statistics. You just look at some bar charts. This is Tennessee. The red line is the abortion rate in Tennessee. The black dot line is the national average. You see what happens, when pro-life laws are passed in Tennessee, abortion rate goes down. Your appeal parental involvement, the abortion rate goes back up. It's reenacted, the abortion rate goes back down again. Still skeptical? This is Pennsylvania. The dark blue line is the national abortion rate. The green line is the Pennsylvania abortion rate. In the early 80s, they quit covering abortions in the state Medicaid program. Abortions go from way above average to just a little bit above average. Then the Abortion Control Act takes effect. That was a law that was largely upheld in the Casey decision. It includes a waiting period, informed consent, parental involvement, and the abortion rate falls beneath the national average. So they make 2 big policy changes, both of which succeeded in getting abortion numbers down. So that's kind of the first part of the story. Here's the second part. This is what happens after dogs. So we made a lot of progress on Roe. Just think what's going to happen now that Roe's overturned. The future's here. We have roughly 14 states are protecting preborn children throughout pregnancy, including Mississippi. 3 states are protecting preborn children after fetal heartbeat can be detected. That's Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Arizona, and I shouldn't have believed Florida, but Arizona has a 15-week ban in place, and Nebraska's a 12-week ban in place. So this is a helpful draft in the New York Times. You see, big chunks of the country, including Mississippi, have very strong pro-life laws in place, protecting mothers and preborn children. And here's the good news. We have data from Texas showing that a lot of these laws are already saving lives. So the first state to really start enforcing a strong pro-life law was Texas. Their law took effect even before dogs. Their Heartbeat Act, which again protected preborn children after 6 weeks gestation, after a fetal heartbeat can be detected, took effect September 1st, 2021. This is 8 months before dogs. And abortion numbers in Texas plummeted. So you see the blue bars are the monthly abortions before the Heartbeat Act. The red bars are the number of abortions in Texas monthly after the Heartbeat Effect took effect. So you see, right when the Heartbeat Act takes effect, abortion numbers in Texas fall, and fall very quickly. You see that they went from over 5,000 a month to over 2,600 a month. Numbers fell almost in half. So you see a big impact right away when the Heartbeat Act went ahead and took effect. Now, the New York Times was not impressed. Okay? They had to come along and rain all over our parade. And they said, sure, abortion numbers are falling in Texas, but you know what's happening? Women are either ordering chemical abortion pills through the mail, or they're getting abortions in other states where the laws are more permissive. And that kind of makes up most of the in-state decline. So the New York Times was not very impressed, ran this big article, March of 2022. Now, there are some problems with this, that the out-of-state abortion numbers are self-reported, we didn't know how accurate they were. Also, a chemical abortion pill ordered is not the same thing as a chemical abortion obtained. Some women may change their mind. Some women just order these pills for future use. So the numbers on chemical abortions ordered may not reflect the actual chemical abortions that occurred. So I actually had a pretty good idea about how to analyze the impact of the Texas Heartbeat Act. And it wasn't looking at abortions. It was looking at births. One thing I tell all pro-life audiences, in abortions, you are hard to count. Women go out of state, they even go to other countries, they may order chemical pills through the mail. Abortions are hard to count. But babies are easy to count. Have you ever seen a baby before? They crawl, they run around, they make a lot of noise. So it's pretty easy to count a baby. The government doesn't do a lot of things well, but it can easily figure out how to count a baby being born. So babies are easy to count. So I looked up that birth data from Texas. And if more pregnancies are being carried to term, we can be pretty confident the Texas Heartbeat Act is saving lives. So the abortions that were prevented in September 2021, these are babies that started to be born around March of 2022. So you look at, birth in Texas, and you see a big spike in 2022. So a record number of children were being born in Texas because of the Texas Heartbeat Act. We have very clear birth data from the Lone Star State, clearly indicates a big spike in births, because the Texas Heartbeat Act took effect in September of 2021. So, between March and November 2022, I calculate over, 11,000 more births. I calculate about 1,200 babies being saved every month. In 2022, the Texas birth rate increased by over 4.5%, the largest percentage increase in the country. So we see a big increase in births in Texas, powerful evidence that the Texas Heartbeat Act is saving unborn children and protecting mothers as well. So, and there's actually a bunch of research backing this up. I did a study for the Lozier Institute back in November 2022. Also a study that came out in the Journal of the American Medical Association, peer-reviewed journal, not really pro-life, but the data was just irrefutable. They agreed. Texas Heartbeat Act saving lives, and the University of Houston has an institute on women, gender, society. Their study showed the same thing. Texas Heartbeat Act is saving about 1,000 babies every month. Again, more data. In the 14 states with strong pro-life laws, again, we have data kind of going into 2023, birth data from other states that passed strong pro-life laws. They found that births increased by 2.3 percentage points more in states with strong pro-life laws compared to those states where abortion was legal. So they have argued that this study, which appeared again in the Institute for Labor Economics, that strong pro-life laws across the country saved 32,000 lives in the first 6 months of 2023. So again, we see birth numbers going up in a lot of states that went ahead and enacted strong pro-life laws after Dobbs, including Mississippi. We have birth data from 2023. And in 2023, births went down in most of the country, but births went up here in Mississippi. In fact, the number of babies born in Mississippi in 2023 went up by 1.8%. That may not seem like a lot, but it was the largest percentage increase of any state in the country. So I would say that just in 6 months alone, nearly 500 lives were saved in Mississippi because Mississippi was one of the first states to go ahead and protect all preborn children after Dobbs. And again, keep in mind, we only started protecting preborn children, roughly around June, July of 2022. More lives are going to be saved after this, but just in 1.5 a year, about 480 lives were saved because of the strong pro-life laws we enacted shortly after Dobbs, was handed down. So more good news. Heartbeat International has some encouraging data. Since Dobbs, their hotline has seen a 50% increase in serious callers seeking assistance, not crank calls. These are women and pregnant who do want assistance. And they say that over half of the pregnancy centers have seen an increase in clients after Dobbs. So it's even more good news. So sometimes I give talks in parts of the country where, because of the political situation, it's not really easy to pass pro-life laws. But one thing I tell pro-life audiences everywhere is no matter where you are or what you're doing, there's always things you can do to build a culture of life. Now, let me just give you some examples. Television ads. There's a group based in Missouri called the Caring Foundation. And about 30 years ago, they did some interesting research. They wanted to know why some women facing unintended pregnancies chose abortion while others carried pregnancies to term. So they researched this topic, and they did a variety of surveys and did other things to collect data, and the results were interesting. They found that knowledge of field development really had very little to do with decisions that women made. That knowing when the heart started to beat, when fingers and toes started to develop, when brainwaves started, that had very little impact on the decisions that women made. What did have an impact is how women viewed motherhood. Women viewed motherhood as empowering, or like they carry their pregnancies to term. Women viewed motherhood as somehow threatening, chose abortion. So they started running TV ads with a different spin. They would run an ad with the feature of a woman who had an unintended pregnancy, carried it to term, was in a good situation, acknowledged it was difficult, but said she did the right thing, and made the case that motherhood was an empowering choice. Anecdotally, these ads have been very effective at getting abortion numbers down. They drive a lot of calls to pregnancy help centers, and anecdotally, they've been effective at getting abortion numbers down. There's a story, I'm not sure if it's true, but even if it's not true, I think it should be. I heard a story, they were running an ad campaign in Maine, and this ad campaign was so effective that abortion facilities in Maine were literally throwing their TVs out of the waiting room. Someone would be in the waiting room, waiting to have an abortion, see the ad on TV, get up and leave. Now, I'm not sure if that's quite true or not, but I think it's a great story. If it's not true, I hope it is. So I think that's a good story. The government's doing more to support pregnancy help centers. Instead of giving our taxpayer dollars to Planned Parenthood, which destroys life, we should give our money to places that support life and strengthen the culture of life. So I'm glad to see pregnancy centers getting some help through grants or tax write-offs or other things. You get ultrasound technology gets better every year. I think that, again, the very first picture somebody sees of a son, daughter, brother, sister, niece, nephews in utero, that's having an important effect. And lastly, sidewalk counseling. In places where abortion is legal, there's hardy souls who wake up every morning, who go up to abortion clinics, peacefully trying to offer alternatives to women in need. Again, it's something I do in Washington, D.C. I call it the best and worst thing I do every week. I'm not going to lie, it's not always pleasant. Your batting average sometimes isn't great. Sometimes people just aren't interested. But you do break through. Everybody who's done this for any extended amount of time can at least point to one situation where an abortion was stopped because they showed up that morning. And sometimes really all you need to do is show up. You don't necessarily need to be super skilled. You don't necessarily need to have the best argument. You just need to smile and offer alternative, and you can save lives that way. So I run a 4 Days for Life campaign in Washington, D.C. Here's a picture of a kickoff rally. I always encourage people to come out, and I get some well-known people to speak. I always get some students to speak. They're often my best speakers, and there we are doing our rally for the Planned Parenthood. And you can do the same thing too, even though abortion is no longer legal in Mississippi. I'm sure there's places doing abortion referrals, and again, we need to be out there offering alternatives to abortion vulnerable women. So now, not all is good. There are some storm clouds on the horizon I need to tell you about. First, since 2017, the abortion rate in the U.S. has creeped up a bit. And we saw big declines from 1980 to 2017. Numbers have creeped up. Why? As one of the speakers mentioned, increase in chemical abortions. The rules become a lot more permissive. The FDA changes policy a couple times. Now women are able to obtain chemical abortions at a later stage of gestation. There's fewer medical visits to obtain a chemical abortion. Up until recently, the Biden administration continued the very unwise policy of even allowing women to obtain chemical abortion pills without an in-person medical exam. That was something that happened during COVID, and they just continued that policy. That's obviously fatal for unborn children, but very unhealthy for a woman. If a woman is far along in gestation, she realizes has chemical abortion, that gets some very negative health implications. If she's in ectopic pregnancy, it could be fatal. So thankfully that's been changed, but again, the laws are a lot more permissive. That's pushed abortion numbers up. Sadly, some states that aren't as good as Mississippi are repealing their pro-life laws. Illinois, Rhode Island, have actually started to fund abortion through the state Medicaid programs. That's pushing abortion numbers up. Massachusetts weakened their pro-life parental involvement law. Illinois repealed their pro-life parental involvement law. That's kind of pushed the abortion numbers up. Biden administration was certainly no friend of pro-lifers. Their FDA has pursued very permissive policies regarding chemical abortion. In every budget the Biden administration has proposed, they've tried to repeal the Hyde Amendment. They've not succeeded, but they're trying to. So he's clearly no friend of the pro-life movement. Our opponents are more mobilized. People who support abortion are now more likely to vote for candidates who do support abortion. So we do need to be aware that our opponents, have not rolled over and played dead. They are active, they are mobilized, they are energized. We have to meet that energy. And, we're struggling with the ballot box. That there have been, I think, 7 statewide ballot propositions since the Dobbs decision. Unfortunately, pro-lifers have not succeeded in winning any of them just yet. And that's something we have to obviously work on for the future. But here's an important insight. My favorite quote is from Martin Luther King. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I think that's very wise. And if you look at the history of the pro-life movement, we've basically faced different challenges at different points in time. But back in the 1970s, we couldn't even get the Supreme Court to uphold even incremental pro-life laws. Supreme Court even struck down a parental involvement law in the 70s. We had that much trouble getting even, tiny incremental laws upheld by the court. We succeeded. The Supreme Court did help parental involvement, and it's upheld other pro-life laws as well. We've developed a network of constitutional judges. And I think part of the problem that Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush had is there wasn't a lot of good pro-life conservative constitutional judges to pick from when judicial vacancies happened. Now, because of the Federalist Society, there's a better network. Now a pro-life president has a range of pretty good choices to pick from should he be elected and should judicial vacancies happen. We finally got presidents to prioritize nominating constitutionalist judges. I think George W. Bush nominated better judges than his father did, than President Reagan did, and I think President Trump nominated better set of judges than George W. Bush did. All three of President Trump's nominees, Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, they all voted that Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. They all, were there on the job decision. So, we're getting better judges now for pro-life presidents. We're actually doing a better job stopping Democratic judicial nominees. Way back when Republicans used to just play dead. I think that only a handful of Republican senators, voted against Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think less than 10 Republican senators voted against Stephen Breyer, a Clinton nominee. Now we actually got Republicans to stop Merrick Garland. I'm not sure that happened 20 years ago, but we did not allow President Obama to get Merrick Garland through during that election year. So, we prioritized it and we kind of reaped the gains today from it. We actually got Amy Coney Barrett through without much time. I think that did take some effort, but we had the vacancy when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away and moved quickly to prioritize that and get a good constitutional conservative in the Supreme Court. So if you look since the 70s, Supreme Court, or I guess conservatives and pro-lifers have really overcome a lot. These state ballot propositions are our latest challenge. If you look at all we've overcome over the years, we'll overcome this too. It may take some time. We've overcome quite a lot in 50 years. We'll figure this out. We'll start to win these things at some point. I'm confident of that. So why we need to be optimistic? Pro-lifers control more state legislatures. We're passing more pro-life laws. Youth outreach is really good. When I was a student in the mid-1990s, I was left to my own devices. I love Students for Life. They're doing some great things on every campus I've been at. They've helped pro-life students get organized. I love their summit after the March for Life. It's great to see thousands of college students very excited to run back to their campuses and build a culture of life, so that's something to be enthusiastic about. All kinds of great pro-life outreach programs, too many for you to talk about here. I love 4 Days for Life, getting people to pray outside abortion clinics. Feminists for Life is trying to make college campuses better places for pregnant students and parenting students. Silent No More is doing a great job capturing testimonies from post-abortive women. I can go on and on, but those are all great pro-life outreaches. And then there were none. Is trying to get women to leave the abortion industry, or actually everybody, not just women, all people who work for the abortion industry to leave. That's great outreach too. Planned Parenthood's get the scrutiny they deserve. Some states have cut funding for Planned Parenthood. We've not defined them at the federal level yet, but we are working on it, and someday that will happen. We've made long-term gains support for the pro-life position. Abortion numbers have gone down long-term, and Roe v. Wade was thankfully, mercifully overturned, and again, it was a pro-life law in Mississippi that led to its reversal. So, lots to be optimistic about. So what's our next steps? Well, first here in Mississippi, you have a great track record. I'm pretty sure you were the first state to have only one abortion facility here in Jackson. No other state could say that. Your 15-week ban, the legal challenge of that resulted in the reversal of Roe v. Wade. You were one of the very first states to legally protect all preborn children. Let's build this legacy. There's always 3 things you can do: politics, legislation, service, education. Again, we need to stop, online orders of chemical abortion pills. There is the Comstock Act, which I think could do that. There is federal laws that do make it illegal to send, sexually explicit materials, including abortion pills, through the mail. That could be enforced. There are ways we can stop, chemical abortion pills from being delivered, at least to the U.S. Postal Service. So, need to work on that. Also, state laws are good to protect preborn children, but we need help at the federal level. Mississippi does a great job electing, good people to Congress and the Senate. We'll keep it up. We need pro-life congressmen. We need pro-life senators. We need to continue pro-life judicial nominations. We need to help a pro-life president make good pro-life executive branch appointments. We need to protect the Hyde Amendment. So please, keep electing good pro-life people at the federal level. We need that. Service, pregnancy help centers are always needing help. Again, our report that's going to come out this week found that pro-life pregnancy centers saw over 970,000 new clients in 2022 and provided over $367 million worth of goods and services. Just think what more could do. Even though we have strong pro-life laws in Mississippi, there are still women facing unintended pregnancies. Women can still go out of state, get abortions elsewhere. So please, make sure the local pregnancy centers of the state, help the women in need, have the resources that they need. Again, when I give talks to pro-life audiences, I challenge people, identify a local pregnancy center and help them, whatever you can. You can give a little, give a little. Sometimes a little goes a long way. If you can't give money, give time. If you can't even do that, pray. You can certainly pray. So find some way to help local pregnancy centers. They're doing great work, often on a shoestring budget, helping women facing real challenges, real needs. On the board of Pregnancy Center in Washington, D.C., we always need help. So if you're helping, great, God bless you. If you're not, step up your efforts. They always are in need of more assistance. Well, that's the education. Just to remind you that today's youth are tomorrow's voters, elected officials, and pro-life activists. In fact, sometimes through today's pro-life activists, if you look at the history of abortion, a lot of good, both for good and for ill, has been done by young people. So we still need to continue to outreach to young people. And sadly, some of the polls show we're losing some ground among young people. This generation, Generation Z, does not seem quite as sympathetic to the pro-life position as past generations of young people. It doesn't have to be this way. So educational efforts are still important. Students Life, other groups doing great work on campuses. Let's support that. Here's another idea. Join me in Washington, D.C. If your heart's really set on sidewalk counseling, and you actually want a sidewalk counselor with a clinic that does abortions, I always need help outside the D.C. Planned Parenthood. So please join me. If you find yourself in town for the Dogs Anniversary or for the March for Life Week, come join me outside the D.C. Planned Parenthood. I always need all the help I can get, and if you can't come in person, please pray for my efforts. I'm there every Saturday. I need all the help I can get. So, some parting words. In the near future, we're going to have some internal debates about strategy. If you disagree with the pro-lifers, please be charitable. Pro-life infighting has done a lot of damage in the past. It doesn't need to do damage in the future. So again, everybody wants the same thing. We all want preborn children protected. We all want mothers protected. We may have different ideas on how to best achieve that goal, but please, if you do disagree with somebody, do so charitably. Please, let's not let infighting hinder our efforts. So to conclude, well, the arrogant grievances, the feats of physical strength, and the festivus pull. I'm just seeing who's paying attention. This is Seinfeld. I'm the last speaker. It's been a long day. Some people nod off or don't pay attention to me, so I just always have a joke slide in there. No, these aren't the real conclusions. This is a famous Seinfeld episode. This is all about festivus. These are not the conclusions. These are the conclusions. Pro-life succeeded in cutting the abortion rate by more than 50% with Roe on the books. We're going to make more progress now that Roe's overturned. Now, suppose you paid attention to anything I said during the past hour. You were tired, you daydreamed, you fell asleep, whatever, that's totally fine, okay? Because if you forget everything I said, just remember this last slide. We have made progress. For over 50 years, pro-life people work tirelessly to protect mothers and preborn children. Progress does not always come as quickly as we would like, but of every conflict we stay the course, victory will someday be ours. Thank you. So that's my information. If I can help you in your pro-life work in any way, that's my email, that's my Twitter handle. Give me a follow on Twitter. I shoot out pro-life information almost every day. If I can help you in anything you do in your pro-life work, please contact me. Just put pro-life Mississippi in the subject heading, you'll be at the top of the pile.
What a